Chicago, 1981. A lawyer walks into a courtroom. Suit, briefcase, confident stride. He sits down, pulls out his papers, reviews his client's case. Up above, the judge sits. Black robe, serious face, the symbol of American justice. The case is called. The lawyer stands. For one brief second, he makes eye contact with the judge. A blank, empty look. Nothing is said. But when the lawyer approaches the judge's assistant, he quietly slides an envelope into her hand. Inside the envelope, $50. 10 minutes later, the case is dismissed. Reason given, insufficient evidence. The man who had a criminal charge against him walks free. The lawyer steps outside. He tells himself, normal day. But today was not normal at all, because inside that lawyer's jacket, there was an FBI recording device, and those $50, the hand reaching out to take them, everything was on tape. This was Operation GreyLord, and this is the story of how the FBI built a fake court system inside a real one to trap the judges who were selling justice to the highest bidder. Cook County, Illinois. To understand what happened, you first need to understand what this place was in the 1970s. Cook County was home to the largest county court system in America. Chicago sits inside Cook County. Every year, millions of cases flowed through this system. Traffic tickets, drug charges, assault, murder. Everything passed through these same courts. And inside this system, corruption was not a secret. Here is how it worked. If you had a case in court, you did not go directly to the judge. There was a process. First, you found someone inside the courthouse, maybe a clerk, maybe a court assistant, sometimes a retired cop who now spent his days drifting through the hallways. These people had a name. They were called hustlers. You told the hustler what your case was, what you needed. He gave you a number, 200 for this charge, 500 for this judge, 1,000 for this crime. You paid. He delivered the money to the judge, and the judge delivered the result. Case dismissed, sentence reduced, bail approved. No questions, no paper trail, only cash. And this system worked because the entire structure was designed so that no single link could ever be proven. The judge never received anything directly. The lawyer never paid anyone directly. There was always a man in the middle, someone almost impossible to isolate and prosecute. And everyone knew. Senior lawyers knew, and they quietly told younger lawyers, this is how things work here. Police officers knew, and they used the system themselves when their own cases needed to move faster. Prosecutors knew. Some cases were mysteriously delayed for no reason. Others were dismissed without explanation. And ordinary citizens, the people of Chicago, sometimes figured it out. But what could they do? The judge was the law. The judge was the system. One number tells the story clearly. A study in Cook County Traffic Court during the 1970s estimated that in roughly 4 out of every 10 cases, something was wrong. A case dismissed without a full hearing, a fine abnormally low, a seriously dangerous driver walking away with no consequences. 4 out of 10. That was the judicial system Chicago citizens were living inside. And in 1977, one man decided, no, this has to end, and I am going to end it. That man's name was Dan Webb, Assistant United States Attorney, a federal prosecutor, which meant he worked in Chicago, but not for the state courts, for the federal government. Webb had been watching Cook County for years, and he was frustrated because at the state level, Cook County's own prosecutors, nothing ever happened. They had to work inside the same system. If you went against the system, you were finished. No promotions, transfers, no cases assigned to you. But at the federal level, Webb had independence. He called a meeting, senior FBI agents. He put forward the idea, we need a deep undercover operation inside the courtroom itself. The FBI's first answer was no. The reason was solid. If we run an undercover operation inside a courtroom and if it gets legally challenged, there are two serious problems. First, the entire operation could be ruled illegal. Second, if fake cases were created with real-seeming defendants, their rights could be violated. And then there was another layer: attorney ethics. The American Bar Association's Model Code of Professional Responsibility stated clearly, a lawyer cannot lie in court, cannot use perjured testimony, cannot present false evidence. So if the FBI's undercover lawyer lied in court, used fake evidence, was that an ethics violation? And if it was, could the entire operation's results be thrown out? This was a real problem. Webb worked on it for months. Then, in 1979, the Illinois Supreme Court issued a ruling in a case called In re Friedman. The ruling said that deception inside courtrooms technically violated ethics rules, but certain justices added, if the motive is good, if it is necessary, if there is proper supervision, it can be handled differently. Webb read that ruling carefully, and he designed 6 guidelines for the FBI operation. 1. Only use these methods when there is absolutely no other option. 2. Only target individuals where solid evidence or strong indication already exists. 3. Design fake cases so that no innocent person is harmed. 4. Every step must be closely supervised, no freelancing. 5. Use minimum deception, only as much as necessary. And most critically, secretly inform the city's senior judicial and law enforcement authorities that this operation is happening. The Chief Judge of the United States District Court in Chicago was informed. The Chief Judge of Cook County's Criminal Court was informed. Both agreed. Proceed. Now there was only one thing left: the right person. His name was Terry Hake, 31 years old, assistant state attorney for Cook County, which meant he prosecuted cases inside those same Cook County courts. Hake started working in 1979, and within his first week, he saw it. A senior lawyer, experienced, well-respected, openly placed money into the hand of a court clerk, right there, in a traffic case, in front of everyone, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Terry reported it to his supervisor. His supervisor said, "Son, that's just how things work here. Stay clean, focus on your own cases." Terry stayed clean. A year passed, but what he was seeing every single day kept getting worse. Cases dismissed for no reason, dangerous criminals walking free, innocent people, people who had no money to pay the system, sitting in jail. One day, Terry walked into the federal building and knocked on the FBI's door. The FBI listened carefully and asked, "Are you ready to do this?" Terry asked, "What does doing this involve?" The FBI explained, "You keep doing exactly what you're doing, going to court, handling cases. But now you'll also handle fake cases, and when the opportunity arises, you'll pay a clerk or a judge's assistant. We'll record everything." Terry asked one final question: "How long will I be doing this alone?" The FBI agent said, "As long as necessary." Terry shook hands. In early 1980, Terry Hake made his first payment, $50, a traffic ticket, into the hand of a clerk. The FBI recorder was running, every word captured. First payment successful. Slowly, Terry built his place, inside the courts, among the hustlers. He became a reliable player, someone who understood the system, someone no one would ever report. Months passed, payments grew larger, evidence stacked up inside FBI offices. But investigators knew small fish would not be enough. They needed a judge, directly accepting money. And that is when a new person entered the story, someone who gave the operation an entirely new dimension. FBI Field Office, Chicago. A man walked in, suit, slightly disheveled. He looked nervous. Special Agent Tom Bowling met with him. The man gave his name, Wayne Olson, Cook County Circuit Court Judge. Bowling thought, what is this? A judge came to the FBI on his own? Olson said, I know what's happening in these courts. I've been part of the system, but I want it to end. I want to help. Bowling spent an hour with Olson, carefully. The FBI's trained for moments like this. Any offer of help needs to be carefully verified. Anyone can walk in and say they want to cooperate, when their actual goal is to expose the operation. But Olson's story was credible, and the information he provided checked out. The FBI made an offer. Can you wear a wire? Meaning, inside your own courtroom, inside your own chambers, will you wear a hidden recording device? Olson said yes. This was the first time in American judicial history that a sitting judge wore an FBI wire inside his own courtroom. When lawyers came to Olson's chambers to pay bribes, it was recorded. When other judges passed Olson in corridors and casually mentioned the corruption, that was recorded too. And every time a judge openly discussed his own operation with Olson, that name was permanently added to the FBI's list. Olson's chambers had become the most powerful secret recording studio in Chicago. The biggest target's name was Richard Lefevre, presiding judge of Cook County Traffic Court, in charge of the entire traffic division, thousands of cases every single week. The phrase that was said about Lefevre in Chicago was this: if Lefevre can't fix it, no one can. He had a complete system. His cousin, James Lefevre, was the business manager, meaning James collected. Lawyers and hustlers met with James. James delivered the money to the judge. $100 per DUI charge, $200 for a drunk driving incident, $1,000 if a serious accident was involved, $2,000 if the case involved injury. This was a complete price list, negotiable and reliable. Lefevre always delivered. The FBI had been watching Lefevre for 2 years. Terry Hake worked slowly toward James Lefevre. It took months. Trust had to be built. Fake cases had to be brought in. And in 1983, one day, right in front of Terry, James Lefevre openly accepted money and said, "Richard will handle it." The recording was perfect. The FBI now had Chicago's biggest judicial fish. It was time to announce the operation. March 15th, 1984. Federal Courthouse, Chicago. Harold Kahn, Deputy Traffic Court Clerk for Cook County, stood in the dock. The jury delivered its verdict, guilty, on every single count: bribery, corruptly accepting gratuities. On the FBI recordings, his voice was clear, accepting money, discussing which judges would get their share. Kahn was convicted. The first domino had fallen. Over the following months, in Chicago, one domino after another came down. One judge arrested, then another, then a lawyer whose record had always been spotless, then a police officer everyone in the courts knew. After every arrest, headlines in Chicago's newspapers. After every headline, another revelation. And the biggest arrest came when Richard Lefevre himself faced federal charges. Presiding judge, the boss of the courts, the man who had fixed thousands of cases. Federal charges, federal trial, federal conviction. From 1984 to 1992, 8 years, convictions kept coming. Final count, 92 officials convicted, 17 judges, federal prison sentences, 48 lawyers disbarred, never allowed to practice law again, 8 police officers jailed, 10 deputy sheriffs convicted, 8 court officials convicted, 1 state legislator convicted. Almost all of them pleaded guilty. Because the FBI's recordings were so strong, a trial would have been pointless. Operation GreyLord changed American legal history.
After it concluded, the FBI was officially authorized to use in-court undercover techniques in future judicial corruption investigations. That precedent exists to this day. Cook County courts underwent comprehensive reforms. Monitoring systems were introduced, supervision was tightened. Clerks could no longer move freely between judges. Terry Hake, decades later, wrote a book. In it, he wrote that those 3 years of the operation changed his entire personality. He was no longer himself, going to court every day, lying every day, handing money to people, knowing they would be arrested. Some nights he could not sleep. But he wrote, "I believe I did what was necessary, and the 17 judges who went to prison, that was right." But there was one more thing. Something Operation GreyLord's investigators quietly noted and which was never fully made public. In 1984 in Cook County, the total number of active judges was over 400. Operation GreyLord, across its entire 8 years, convicted 17 judges. 17 out of 400. The investigators themselves privately acknowledged this was the tip of the iceberg. These were the easy cases, the ones who came directly onto the wire, the ones who openly took money in front of Terry, the ones who were deeper in, the smarter ones, the ones who were never directly recorded. They stayed in the system. Their rulings kept coming, their courtrooms kept filling, and the public had no way of knowing. Richard Lefevre, after his release from prison, gave a short interview. Only one sentence. "I never thought anyone would get that far inside." That far inside. 3 years, fake courts, wired judges, real money, real convictions, and still only 17 out of 400. The other 383, they were still sitting in their courtrooms, giving their rulings. Who were they? How much do you trust their verdicts?